tell us how you ended up in Iten, Kenya.
Well, after finishing my university studies in Galway, I went briefly to Newbridge and taught there for 2 or 3 years. And then our Patrician Brothers have a school in Kenya, and the opportunity came up in 1976 for some brothers to volunteer to go to Kenya. Quite a number of us volunteered, and I was one of the lucky ones to be selected. Well, I went to a school that had a great interest in sports in general, not just athletics. And there were some athletic programs in place in the school, mainly through the instigation of a few volunteer teachers, people like Peter Foster from Gateshead, the brother of Brendan Foster, people like Norman Thompson was a great basketball coach, so they were very interested in sports. And I was in a boarding school for boys, and the boys were there 24/7 basically, and I wanted to do something for the students outside of class. And of course athletics was a sport that didn't require a lot of facilities. Many of the students, I was in an area where there was talent, and athletes had already distinguished themselves from the area. So I just kind of learned the sport and had a passion for it when I saw the kids were responding to training, responding to the success, of course. And most of the competitions we did in the early years were fairly local. It wasn't until much later, when they began to run on the international scene, that I began to realize how really good they were. Oh, well, in 1975 there was the option for brothers to go to Los Angeles to teach. And I don't think America really attracted me. I wanted a place maybe that had a little bit more challenge, a bit more adventure. And I think, well, I suppose looking back on it now, I mean, people would have said, oh, California would have been your dream. But now, of course, Kenya has become my dream. There is no secret. And of course, and I often say this to people, that people always think when something happens in a kind of a recurring fashion. You might ask the same question to Brian Cody in hurling, or to a coach of any person who has consistently won major competitions. And they will generally all tell you that it's got to do with the ability to nurture talent, the ability to be able to motivate people, encourage people, have a passion for what you do, and do the hard work and realize the discipline required if you want to be among the best. You can see a certain amount on the exterior. First impressions can have an impact, but very often you have to dig a little bit deeper and go into what they think about it. Are they prepared for the long haul? Are they prepared to keep at it, push through disappointments and failures? Are they prepared to do the hard work, to reach the top? So with the initial eye you have for the sport, that's only a starting point. But there's a lot more to be done after that, because some people can really impress you when they're young as being very talented. But unless they have the head for it as well and the heart for it, then the chances of success are very slim. Well, I learned my coaching in Kenya, and maybe that had an advantage. I think if I went there kind of as a very highly qualified coach, the danger might be that you would try to impose a lot of what you learned and a lot of maybe even theoretical knowledge about the sport. Whereas I reversed the process and I learned from the athletes. They taught me how to coach. And I think that also led me into understanding them, understanding what motivates them. When a young athlete comes to me, the impulse is always, as an experienced coach, to try to impose what you know about the sport, or saying, yes, I know exactly what to do to make you a success. For me, I reverse the process and I say, what is the young athlete bringing to me? Spend more time concentrating on them and what they bring to you, rather than what you have to offer them. Well, sports always changes. I mean, more advanced methods of coaching, new approaches to the lifestyle of an athlete. And you need to remember, athletics as a professional sport is not very old. It's one of the last sports to turn professional. And with that, of course, always when a sport becomes your livelihood, when it becomes your career, then you move into another level. You move on to another level in the sport. So you have to start really looking at the technicalities, and you really have to start looking at your training methods and starting to realize that these are young people who have given up other options in life to become successful athletes. So as a coach, you must move to that level by really searching deep down as to what is the best way, what is the most appropriate way for coaching. And that's why I kind of moved away from the more routine coaching when the training was maybe a bit more amateurish, so to speak. Training methods perhaps not, but training approach, in the idea of athletes having a commitment, athletes having the necessary enthusiasm, the necessary passion for it. I mean, Ireland occasionally always throws up a superstar in a variety of sports. We have it in golf, we have it in swimming, we have it in athletics, and there's always somebody coming through the system. Maybe not in the same number as you might have in other countries, because remember, we have a small population, you know. And remember also, we have very highly successful team events in our country, like hurling and football and soccer and rugby, and so. The athletes are drawing from a rather small pool of talent, and so, but I think the approach to the sport is as important as the actual technique. Techniques you can borrow, you can learn, you can copy a program as to how somebody trains, but that in itself is only a very small part of the actual commitment that you need from an athlete. And when somebody like Rob Heffernan, or in the past people like Eamon Coughlin or Sonia Sullivan, they worked hard for what they did. They realized what it takes to become a successful athlete. My approach is based on a Kenyan lifestyle, on a Kenyan approach to life themselves. So I think I would have to come back, if I was to coach or deal with a Kenyan athlete, I would have to come back and study the Irish psyche, study what motivates them, what's important for them in life. And of course, the lifestyle is different. The pressures, the expectations, all those things are factors. So I would have to kind of reinvent myself as a coach. David, of course, I know for a long time. For the past 9 years, I've been associated with him, from the time he was in primary school up to the present day. Any athlete that I coach, I try to set up a personal relationship with them, to understand them, understand where they come from, what motivates them, what their level of commitment is, etc. And I think with David now, people, you know, in a sense, when you produce maybe an athlete of David's caliber, you're never even 100% sure yourself how it came about. You know, it's not all clearly documented or clearly, worked out as to what makes a great sports person. And I think I've been very lucky to have had somebody like David who has really responded to my program, who has really given up, his everything to become a successful athlete. And I think maybe I just created the environment. I created the situation in which David felt very comfortable in training, and felt and I think the way I relate to him, like for example, I involve him in his coaching program. I just don't go to the track side and come with a fixed program and say, this is what we're doing today. I involve David in understanding how and why and what he's doing, so that he himself believes then and knows that he's also participating in his training sessions, and I think that motivates him even further. Well, David's run in the London Games were absolutely out of this world in terms of performance. You know, And people have broken world records before in the 800, people have won gold medals. But I think the very fact that he put everything together on the one night makes it very special. The fact that he was able to run without a pace setter, run with such pressure and such a weight on his shoulders, and run so gracefully and made the event look so attractive to people watching it. Yeah, I think that's what caught people's imagination. And mine as well. Even though I had prepared him for the Olympics, we made sure everything was in place. At the same time, he's the one who had to go out, stand on that line, and do it on the night. And it even surprised me, in a sense. Even though I said, yeah, he's a favourite, he'll be very difficult to beat, etc., etc. At the same time, he had to go and do it. And you're never sure until somebody crosses the finish line, and it's only then you begin to realise the calibre of athlete he is. A very tough call. Now, when you consider the history of 800 metre running, Sebastian Coe broke the world record in 1981. It stood for 16 years. Wilson Kipketer came along after him, broke the world record. It stood for 13 years. David Rudisha comes along in 2010 and breaks Wilson Kipketer. Now, from 1981 to 2012 is 31 years. And in that 31 years, they haven't yet removed even 1 second from the world record. So it shows you how tough it is in perspective. Now, David is 140.91, so he has to remove the best part of a second to break that 140. That just puts it in perspective of time, But people would say, who else can break it except David? We never know. There might be somebody down the line, but it certainly is a tough record to break. And I think to break 140 is a huge leap. Maybe to break the 140.91 is possible, but 140 would be unimaginable.